These women had a confrontation, but then one of the women's 10-year-old daughters shoots the other woman. This couple came up with a deranged plan to take out her husband instead of just leaving him. And this man took out his ex-wife and her new boyfriend in the worst way. Let's get to the sad and unfortunate crimes, starting with number 5, 10-year-old judgment. On Memorial Day back in 2022, LaShun Rogers lost her life outside her Orlando apartment over an old and petty social media dispute. Her neighbor, Lucretia Isaac, came out of her apartment drunk and started a fight, then handed her 10-year-old daughter her bag containing a firearm. Moments later, Rogers was on the ground and Isaac walked away as if nothing had happened. The conflict began when Isaac confronted Rogers outside their apartment complex over a past dispute. Witnesses said that Isaac was probably drunk when she approached Rogers and had reignited an old argument. As it usually goes with these things, words quickly turned into a physical conflict and Isaac ended up throwing a punch. Rogers retaliated and bystanders tried to separate them. But then, things took a turn. While Isaac continued a verbal onslaught, she handed her pink bag, which contained a loaded firearm, to her 10-year-old daughter. A neighbor's video later revealed that the girl calmly took out the firearm, loaded a round into the chamber, and fired. Rogers was struck twice, including once in the head. As she collapsed, the child said that she shouldn't have hit her mama. Then, instead of checking on Rogers like a normal person, Isaac took the firearm from her daughter and pointed it at Rogers' boyfriend, who had intervened. He immediately put his hands in the air. Then, after a brief standoff, Isaac and her daughter simply walked back to their apartment as if nothing had happened. Neighbors then rushed to call emergency services, and Rogers was transported to the hospital where she eventually succumbed to her injuries. Isaac was arrested and charged with multiple crimes and was looking at a possible 30 years in prison. But prosecutors instead offered her a plea deal, reducing her sentence to just 5 years in prison with 3 years of probation. The agreement outraged Rogers' family, who felt that a punishment of 5 years didn't come close to fitting the gravity of the crime. Meanwhile, the 10-year-old was put in juvenile custody, and her statements to investigators painted a troubling picture. She told police that her mother had been drinking before the fight and that she had followed her outside despite being told to stay in the apartment. The girl recalled hearing Rogers threaten to bring her family to jump Isaac, which made her angry. She admitted to having anger issues and said that in the heat of the moment, she took the firearm from the bag, aimed it, and pulled the trigger. She also claimed that Rogers had hit her mother with something, though Isaac later denied suffering any injuries. The case brought about a ton of discussions about parental responsibility in crimes committed by minors. The involvement of such a young child in a crime of that nature raises some difficult legal and ethical questions. The young girl was initially charged with a second-degree crime, but because of her age, we don't have access to her outcome. Prosecutors said they would consider all factors, including her young age, before deciding on further legal actions. Rogers' family was devastated by the loss, describing her as a kind and generous woman who had even given food and popsicles to the child who ultimately ended her life. Rogers' daughter, Ashia Johnson, said she was heartbroken over losing her mother in such a senseless way. What do you think about this case? Did the law get this one right? On one hand, a trigger doesn't care who pulls it. The results are the same, often permanent. The daughter seemed to understand what she was doing, and she clearly knew how to handle a firearm. So, how much should her age matter? But on the other hand, her age matters a lot. She was in 4th or 5th grade. Most 10-year-olds still struggle with reality in ways adults don't. Some genuinely believe that when someone gets hurt, they can just get back up, like in a video game. They don't fully grasp that there's no undo button. Then there's Lucretia Isaac. She was drunk. She didn't pull the trigger. Her daughter even said she was told to stay inside. Was Isaac even capable of stopping what happened? Or does the fact that she handed over the firearm make her just as responsible? Should her punishment have been harsher? Tell us what you think in the comments below. Number 4. The Hidden Affair. In 2017, Fabio Sementilli, a renowned beauty executive, was living a life of success and luxury in Los Angeles with his wife Monica and their 2 daughters. But on January 23rd of that year, tragedy struck when Fabio was found lifeless by the family's backyard pool. What initially appeared to be a home invasion gone wrong soon unraveled into a case that prosecutors described as one of greed and betrayal. Monica Sementilli, once seen as a grieving widow, stands accused of plotting her husband's demise. According to investigators, Monica had been involved in a secret relationship with a guy named Robert Baker, a racquetball coach who already had a criminal past. Authorities said the plan was meticulously staged to resemble a burglary, with 2 hooded figures seen on a neighbor's security camera jogging near the Sementilli residence. Shortly after, Fabio's Porsche was spotted leaving the scene. The investigation initially focused on a series of break-ins targeting celebrities in the area. However, detectives soon uncovered a crucial clue: blood at the crime scene that didn't belong to Fabio. DNA analysis led police to Robert Baker, a man who had exchanged thousands of phone calls and messages with Monica in the year leading up to Fabio's passing. As detectives delved deeper, they found surveillance footage from the day of the crime, showing Monica at a Target store. Prosecutors say she was establishing an alibi while remotely monitoring her home security system. They claim that while Monica shopped, Baker and an unidentified accomplice entered the house and carried out the plan. Further investigations revealed suspicious details about the couple's interactions. Baker and Monica were seen together at Fabio's memorial, with witnesses noting how at ease Monica seemed around him. Detectives then uncovered their thousands of calls and texts, exposing a secret relationship. Later, during a police ruse, a staged traffic stop, Monica allegedly whispered to Baker that somebody must have talked and that somebody was doing this to them as they sat handcuffed in a wired police vehicle. Prosecutors, like pretty much everyone else, saw this as a telling sign of guilt. Letters exchanged between them from jail even hinted at a continued romance, with Monica referring to herself as Mrs. Baker. Despite the piles of evidence, Monica has maintained her innocence, and her daughters, Jessica and Isabella, continue to stand by her side. Her defense argues that there's no direct proof linking her to the crime and insists that Baker acted alone. In July of 2023, Roger Baker pleaded no contest to Fabio's passing and received a life sentence without parole. He later told CBS News' 48 Hours that Monica had no involvement in the crime. As of the release of this video, Monica's trial is yet to begin, but the case really isn't looking like it'll go in her favor. The prosecution insists she was a key player in a calculated scheme, while her defense claims she's being wrongly accused based on circumstantial evidence. To us, it does seem like there's a lot of circumstantial evidence. But the thing is, just because evidence is circumstantial doesn't mean that it doesn't need explanations. And Monica had better come up with some good ones. This case and its details were reported extensively by CBS News' 48 Hours. Number 3. Bone extortion. Some crimes are so bizarre they seem almost unreal. In Vietnam, Luu Thanh Nam was drowning in debt and came up with one of the most absurd money-making schemes imaginable. He didn't rob a bank, steal from a stranger, or even run a typical scam. Instead, he dug up his own uncle's grave, stole his remains, and tried to ransom them back to his family. Luu Thanh Nam, a 37-year-old from Tan Hoa province, found himself drowning in financial trouble. But instead of seeking an honest way out, he hatched a weird plan. He took a shovel to his uncle's grave, dug a small hole, and removed some of the bones. And rather than keeping them safe, he stashed them in a pile of garbage, which is If he's going to mess up a grave, he might as well go all the way, right? Then he moved on to the next phase of his plan, extortion. The deceased was Nam's uncle and the father of his cousin, Luu Thanh Nam. The next day, Hoy's wife received a text from an unknown number. The message was direct. Pay 5 billion Vietnamese dong, about $203,000, or the bones would be lost forever. If they went to the police, they would never see their relatives' remains again. So, naturally, Hoy and his wife freaked out and rushed to check the grave. They found exactly what they feared, a hole in the coffin cap that confirmed the threat. So, in spite of being told specifically to not reach out to authorities, they did anyway. Lucky, Nam didn't get far. Investigators quickly traced the crime back to him, and when confronted, he immediately confessed. He had no elaborate excuse, just overwhelming gambling debts that pushed him to do something stupid. Police recovered the bones and returned them to Hoy's family. Hoping to bring peace back to the spirit of the deceased, Hoy reburied the remains according to local customs. In Vietnam, this type of act is taken extremely seriously, with deep-rooted beliefs that disturbing the deceased can bring misfortune. Nam was arrested, and as of the release of this video, is facing potential charges of both extortion and grave desecration, offenses that could land him in prison for decades. We bet Nam is probably stressing about that potential increase in misfortune, right? The story spread quickly online, with people expressing their outrage. Many condemned Nam's actions, warning about the dangers of gambling and the desperate measures it can lead to. The weird thing is, this isn't an isolated case. Similar crimes have surfaced all over Asia, proving that some people will go to unimaginable lengths when faced with financial ruin. Number 2. The psychopathic lawyer. Former attorney Richard Merritt was sentenced to life in prison for a crime that shattered his own family. What began as a financial scheme to steal from his clients spiraled into an 8-month run from the law after committing one of the most shocking betrayals imaginable. Merritt was once a respected lawyer, but beneath that facade was a man whose reputation was built on deception. Well, a different deception. We're aware that lawyers already have a deceptive reputation, but this was different. He had defrauded numerous clients, siphoning off hundreds of thousands from their settlements to fund his own lifestyle. The court eventually caught up with him, and in early 2019, he was sentenced to 15 years behind bars. Given time to put his affairs in order before reporting to jail, Merritt instead took that opportunity to disappear, leaving behind a scene of unthinkable tragedy. Instead of turning himself in on February 1st, 2019, Merritt cut off his ankle monitor and, according to prosecutors, took his mother's life the next day before stealing her car and fleeing. Shirley Merritt, Richard's mother, had been one of his strongest supporters, even paying his bond and hiring his lawyer. It's possible she confronted him about his failure to surrender, or that he saw her as an obstacle to escape. Some speculate he feared she would alert authorities or refuse to help him any further. No one really knows why he did what he did, but he did it and left. For nearly 8 months, Merritt evaded capture, slipping into a new identity and securing a job in another state. Despite his attempt to create a new life, law enforcement remained determined to bring him in. The U.S. Marshals finally tracked him down in Nashville, Tennessee, where his fugitive days came to an end. During the trial, Merritt insisted he was innocent, spinning a tale of masked intruders committing the crime. But his version of events didn't hold up against overwhelming evidence. His own brother, Robert Merritt, dismissed his claims as absurd. In the end, the jury took barely an hour to convict him on all charges, sealing his fate with a sentence without parole. Beyond the courtroom, the impact of Merritt's actions weighed heavily on his ex-wife, Janine, and their children. The night before he was supposed to turn himself in, he called her, drunk and angry, and started making threats. She said he had always been verbally cruel and had a drinking problem, so that wasn't anything new, but this time was different. It was the first moment she truly feared that he might follow through. When news broke that Shirley Merritt had lost her life at his hands, that fear became certainty. Janine and her children spent months looking over their shoulders, wondering if he would come for them next. Even as they grieved Shirley's loss, Janine was really close to her. They couldn't fully process it, not while he was still free. Now, with Merritt behind bars for life, all that remains is the wreckage of his choices and the hollow words of an apology he had given in court. He claimed to be sorry, but was it regret for what he did, or for where it left him? Either way, it changes nothing. His mother is gone, his family shattered, and the trust he once commanded is beyond repair. Number 1. The Vengeful Ex. On a quiet night in St. James, New York, a bitter divorce turned into a terrible tragedy. 50-year-old Daniel Capella forced his way into the $1 million home of his ex-wife, Kelly Capella, and her boyfriend, Kenneth Pullman, carrying out his premeditated plan on them as they slept. Then he went outside and told his teenage daughter what he did while she sat waiting in his car. The night began with an ominous warning. Capella instructed his daughter to wait outside while he stormed into the house, armed and ready. Moments later, some pretty recognizable sounds rang out. He then returned to the car and coldly told her that he offed her mother and Kenny. The teenager sat there shocked, then texted her friends, uncertain of what had just happened. Her friends tried reaching out to Kelly, but after receiving no response, they called 911. When police arrived, they found Kelly and Kenneth passed away in their home. Coppola was arrested a mile away at his own residence, where he was placed under mental evaluation after making self-harm statements. This terrible crime didn't come out of nowhere. Coppola and Kelly had recently finalized a contentious divorce. In the months leading up to the crime, Coppola's online activity suggested deepening resentment. Hours before the crimes, he ranted on Facebook about gender pronouns, railing against modern societal norms. But his grievances ran far deeper. Prosecutors later revealed he had a typewritten letter detailing his heinous plan. He blamed Kelly for his financial troubles and had even listed additional targets, including the attorneys involved in their divorce. At his arraignment, the courtroom was filled with grief and rage. Kenneth Pullman's family members sobbed, some unable to stand under the weight of their sorrow, while others unleashed emotional outbursts of anger. Prosecutors described the crime as calculated, pointing to his premeditated letter and the disturbing level of detail Coppola put into his plan. What makes this case so heartbreaking isn't just the loss of life, it's the immense sorrow left behind. It's hard not to empathize with Coppola's daughter who sat in the car, unaware of the horror unfolding inside, only to hear her father return and tell her that her mother was gone in a pretty awful way. Just sitting there and hearing your father say something like that to you must have been terrible. Coppola will spend the rest of his life behind bars, and rightfully so, but the pain he left behind will never fade. Click to watch one of these next videos.